Hello, everybody. I am David, and today I want to talk about Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This is my review for it. I did do a review for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and with War for the Planet of the Apes coming out this weekend, which I'm really excited for because I'm hearing such great things about it, I decided why not complete the trilogy by doing Rise of the Planet of the Apes first. I'll put a link in the description area for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, as well as some other videos. So if you want to check out my Dawn of the Planet of the Apes review, go for it. I better warn you, though, that it was one of my earlier reviews, and my videos were... you could tell I was a little bit more nervous while doing those videos back then. Now I'm a little bit more relaxed and at ease while doing it. It's like, it's so easy for me to just put myself in front of the camera now and just talk movies. So let's get right into this. Let's talk about Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I remember when going to see this movie for the first time, I was very wary about it. Like, I was intrigued by the trailers. I liked what I was seeing in the trailers. And I was someone that was never really a huge Planet of the Apes fan. I remember watching the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movie and thinking, yeah, it was okay. I don't hate it as much as other people do. I'm usually easier on movies, it seems like. And the original Planet of the Apes movies, I didn't like it until... I never really gave it that chance until Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So it was just like 3 years ago I finally sat down and watched all 5 original Planet of the Apes movies, and actually quite enjoyed them. I find them appealing now. I get it, and I like the lore and the mythology that it's set up. And Rise of the Planet of the Apes actually borrows a little bit from the third and fourth movie a little bit, and maybe the fifth movie too, where it grabs this character, Caesar, who is in the original films. If you go back and watch Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, which was the fourth one, I was just watching that one last night, you'll see that there are elements that they do borrow that are in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And there is a strong mythology there that I think this movie saw that they wanted to retool in many ways. They wanted to reestablish what the beginning of the Apes franchise could have been. And this was a really nice, grounded, realistic take to doing it with a more science fiction approach. Not sci-fi like the Tim Burton movie or the original one was, but more of a grounded sci-fi, if that makes sense. The science in it was more believable than it was in the other films. And Andy Serkis, you're throwing him in there, the man who is an amazing talent, especially when it comes to this motion capture. He has mastered it, unlike most actors out there. That he, everybody thinks of, when thinking of motion capture, the first person everybody thinks of is Andy Serkis. He really established it in Lord of the Rings, that trilogy, as Golem or Smeagol, whatever you want to call him, and now he's perfected it with Caesar. And everything that you see, every emotion that you see with Caesar is Andy Serkis. And I know there's people out there that still don't really understand the idea of motion capture, but there are behind the scenes footage of how it captures Andy Serkis's performance. And that's why when you see this performance, you have to remember at the same time, that's right, this is actually a human's performance here. The reason why we're so sucked into this character and how strong his emotions are is because of Andy Serkis and how he makes us care for this character in every single step of the journey that he goes on. I think we feel for him, his emotional journey as a character. And that's what this movie is really strong at. It's definitely strong with this compelling character of Caesar, who, starts off as this ape through science, and then becomes this powerful character who has to stand up for his peers and take control, or else they'll be mistreated for the rest of their life. And especially him, who is a special case in some ways. He befriends James Franco, who is really good in this movie. I think this could be one of my favorite James Franco roles, especially since it's very different from what he usually plays. I think James Franco is a pretty well-rounded actor. I know some people are iffy with him. I think, I was watching the Spider-Man trilogy. Okay, he wasn't the greatest in there, but I thought this was actually a much better role for him, where he really showed a different side of himself and took it seriously, it seems like. And I liked him in that position as this father figure to Caesar. And even to this day, when you go and watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, there is a nice little scene where Caesar watches and remembers, because it's James Franco's character that keeps Caesar's humanity throughout this trilogy. Now, I haven't seen the new one yet, but I've heard that James Franco's character is still somewhat remembered in some sort of essence. So it all starts here, and it's because of that relationship between Franco and Caesar that Caesar has a little bit of humanity with him, which I think is definitely some of the heart of the movie. John Lithgow is also in this movie, and I think he plays an elderly with Alzheimer's. He plays James Franco's father in the movie, and he has Alzheimer's, and there's many scenes where you care about him too, and Caesar even cares about him. There's a part where a douchebag neighbor comes and kind of bullies John Lithgow a little bit, and Caesar steps in, and he's there to protect his master. It's like a dog being faithful to his owner, but much more aware of what's going on. And when things start to go downhill, that's where you start worrying for these characters and where they're going to end up. The special effects are amazing in this movie, but they get even better when you get into the sequels. You can tell they weren't too sure how this movie was going to be perceived, and some people were a little wary about it when it first came out. But as a beginning, I think you needed to establish all of this because the Planet of the Apes films weren't really that popular by that point in time. So the fact that they changed things up enough to really make these films refreshing and cool again, I think is really a statement. Maybe that's the wrong word to use, but I really do like the way this movie was handled, and I thought the score was pretty good too. I think the score, if you are a fan of the original films, the score starts to get a little bit more in tune to those ones later on in the second film. But this film, I thought there was a pretty decent score here. Not my favorite score of all time, but it was a good one. It suits the film, the emotional beats and all that. I will say there are probably a few slow moments in the film, but if you are willing to embrace that and just go on this emotional ride, because sometimes those smaller moments, you don't always need an action sequence to be entertained. Sometimes it's those smaller moments that really get you to care for the characters a lot, in my opinion. So just go along with the journey on where the movie is taking you, and I think you'll have a great time with it. This is definitely the film that starts off this new trilogy of films, and from what I'm hearing, War of the Planet of the Apes really brings everything full circle. I don't know too much about it, so I don't want to talk about that one too much, but this one is definitely like the Batman Begins of the Planet of the Apes franchise. It's a great reboot to something even greater down the line, I think. So if you haven't seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I highly suggest it. It is definitely a great watch, and every time I tell people you should check out this Planet of the Apes movie, believe me, it's not like the other Planet of the Apes movies, where those ones are, I don't want to say cheesy, because I do find them enjoyable now that I've watched them. I've been rewatching them again this week after a while. The last time I watched them was when Dawn came out. So, but they are very different. And this one, I would, if you are somebody that never seen the original Planet of the Apes movies before, don't worry about it. You don't have to. Start with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, then do Dawn, and then watch War of the Planet of the Apes. And if these ones win you over, then I'd say go back and see what came before. Because I do think these ones are more accepted in today's society, in what especially the younger generation is looking for. So it might be a little too different for people who are probably fans of the original franchise, but I think it's for the best. I think this is what this franchise needs to be, and this one establishes it all. So with that being said, guys, I'm ending this review here. I can't wait for War of the Planet of the Apes. It looks amazing. Tell me what you thought of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Did you guys really enjoy it? Is it the Apes movie that got you into Planet of the Apes like it did for me? Let me know. Subscribe to this video. Like this video. And until next time, take care.